You're good.
On point. Try not to get too out of control. First bee job of the season, man. First bee extra-cation 2018. We're gonna be removing these bees out of this 2.5, 3-story brick, traditional Cincinnati German late 1800 architecture. There's was 2 colonies last fall. One in the kitchen, one in the living room on either side. We think there might just be one this year. We think the one in the living room has died out. So we've already done a heat trace. We need to get up a ladder and smoke the entrance on the outside. We're getting set up in the kitchen. As soon as the ladder gets here, we'll go up and smoke, and then we'll start cutting an access. And in about half an hour, we should see a colony of bees in a ceiling. What's up, Andrew?
I don't know where the keys are.
I got them in the pocket.
Oh, you got them?
Yeah.
Okay, let me get in here. I want to get my jacket.
That's cool. We only managed to forget 2 things today. A screen top for one of the buckets and a 10-foot ladder, but we might not need either, so we should be in good shape. The entrance to the first and largest colony is going to be just next to this chimney, fascia board to the right. We're not flying yet, because it's still a nice, cool Cincinnati spring morning. But you couldn't ask for better weather. Beautiful skies, sun is shining, 60 degrees. April 27th? 27th? 2016, Saturday?
28th.
28th? One of those 2 days.
28th.
28th. So we're going to use this laser heat sensor. It's a newbie. I got off Amazon for like 15 bucks. And it'll send the dot out and measure the temperature of the surface. And if the plaster or the drywall isn't too thick, we can sense heat signature from the colony. So you'll notice that away from the colony it's 69 pretty much throughout the kitchen. 68, 69. And once you get over the colony, you'll notice a spike in the heat about 5 degrees, 4 to 5 degrees. And again, the thicker the material you're sensing through, the lower the heat signature. So they put off about 98 degrees, just like human body temperature. And when they all gather in their colony, you can sense that. So you can use that temperature to gauge the size of the colony and determine how big of an access you might need. So we think it's probably a 1 foot by 2 foot, maybe no larger than that. We'll find out soon enough. And I think I'm going to open the windows because it'll get pretty hot in here, especially once the vac is running. Once we smoke them, the bees take on a different mindset. The smoke signals there might be a potential problem with the hive. We might need to abandon ship. So they fill their honey sacs with whatever resources are in the hive. And then they're sort of placated, which means they calm down. And I mean, if you had a gut full of honey, you'd probably calm down too. But they also are planning on looking for a new home potentially. So they're no longer so concerned about defending this one, which makes it easier for us to go in without getting stung. You'll see some beekeepers or people who are removing bees wear gloves and hoods and protective clothing, and we don't. One, you lose all dexterity, and with the bees you really need to be able to be gentle. The bees are very gentle, and if you can act much like them, be calm and be gentle, you're unlikely to get stung and unlikely to get attacked. It might happen on accident once or twice, but once I put that hood on, I sweat like a thoroughbred. We have to leave the lights off. The bees are photosensitive, so they will be attracted to light. If any bees get out in the room, they're going to go straight to the window and try to get back outside. So once we cut access, and I've got this nice grinder with a HEPA filter attached, so there should be no dust in the room, we'll expose the colony, and then we'll start to collect the bees with a special bee vacuum, which puts them into a container. This is the special bee vacuum here. It's actually a home-built version of a bee vac, so it's its maiden test today. This is the power source. This is the maybe you'd call it the diaphragm. The vac hooks up to one side. The cage hooks up to the other side. The bees get collected in here. Once this bucket gets full, we take the top diaphragm off, put a screen top on this bucket, and then we can put this top on another bucket and keep collecting. So we'll collect the bees in a bucket, then we'll remove the comb, which is the most valuable thing that you want to try to save when you're relocating honeybees. We need to remove the brood, and those are the baby bees that are still in the comb. Getting the smoker going. Also, sometimes when we show up on a job and we're trying to assess the size of the colony and determine what it might cost to remove the colony, and sometimes we'll use a stethoscope as well, not just the heat gun, but a stethoscope. And I got this at a thrift shop for like 50 cents. And when you use the stethoscope, it allows you to hear something through the end of your tube. And just like a doctor would listen to your heart, you can put this against the surface, and if you listen closely, you can actually hear the bees buzzing and moving and working.
Yellow Mon. You know about Yellow Mon?
And it's mellow now.
Yeah, Brian knows about Yellow Mon.
Going up to the roof with the smoker.
Aren't we gonna smoke them?
So it's a flat roof, so
Yeah.
you can get up on the roof and then just
Right.
walk
Hang-
over to the side.
Well, otherwise the ladder's gonna
Right. It's gonna
be
yes.
leaning.
on
Yeah,
over here, yeah.
and that's why I always put it right here, because I got that wall and it doesn't lean on us. So,
Go up.
that's enough.
Can you give him another puff? Yeah, and underneath, if you can reach, yeah, there you go.
You always want to make sure you got 3 points of contact when you're going up or down a ladder. 3 points of contact means only one hand or 1 foot is moving at a time.
If we get started and they get mean, I'll go up there and smoke them again. Well, we're trying to get a good fire going so it won't go out. Got wood, pine needle to start it, and then we used just rotten pieces of wood. All set up there?
Yeah, I just we didn't see any bees on the other side.
Yeah, where they were.
Yeah, I banged on it
Yeah.
and everything, nothing coming out.
I think those died out.
That's good.
So, but
Well, not good, but good.
no, it is. But you need to caulk that hole where the entrance where they were going in. You need to
Yeah,
get the
I got
ladder
to put.
over there somehow, or go if you
Yeah, I
can
gotta
hang
seal
off
the hole up.
and caulk it, because
Well, there ain't no coffin. There's a hole.
well.
Sort of like this one. I gotta put a new piece of wood up.
Oh, okay.
So,
Is that wood or metal?
it's wood wrapped in metal.
Oh, okay.
It's wrapped
So
in
yeah, it
aluminum.
needs a new piece to keep
Like,
them
yeah.
from coming in again, because they'll smell that in the spring now when they start swarming.
Yeah.
And they'll find that place and they'll take up in there again. A new bunch.
Smoker.
Okay.
Are you gonna piss them off?
You get the gas.
I'm gonna go that and I'll put.
We'll clean up when we're done. We got this sweep up. Back up. What's that for? You want to start backing up
Yeah.
these?
Yeah. Where's the back? Is it ready to roll? You need to put that.
It's ready to roll.
Okay.
I'll let them get those swept up a little bit before I continue. They're sensitive to the light. Alright, now that we've created another light source, they all come to investigate. They go straight to the window unless we had this on, they come straight here.
Okay.
So
Say that again. Say that again.
if now that we've exposed the colony, they're sensitive to the light. There's a new light source they come to investigate. They're going to go straight to the window. If we had the room light on, they'd come straight to here and the window. So we're just going to clean the bees up a little bit before we continue to create access. I tried to find a stud so I could go stud to stud. A lot of times those combs are going to come all the way down to the bottom of that cavity. So if you cut through and you cut a little too deep, you could cut into the comb some, and that might disturb them a little more. And usually they go from stud to stud. They might spill over to another bay, but usually they stay in one and just build it out as much as they can. So they'll weld from the top of the cavity to the side on either, but on the bottom it's usually loose. So if you're going from the top and trying to pull that piece of plywood off, it's glued down like gorilla glue. And on the bottom, usually you can pull that panel off a lot easier. And then that way you don't have to rip up any of the comb. A lot of times when the comb is attached to the top, you're just pulling it from the top, you pull up the comb in the process. This way, the comb stays more intact.
where you're going to put the comb once you take it out. If it's in the oh, you don't okay. Well, it says you have a box.
Oh, nice. That's a big one.
Andrew, do that one.
This one right
You
here.
want to get any of these? You want to just take this outside?
Yeah.
They look pretty dirty and moldy.
Yeah. What are the white bees?
Can I use the black?
Those white bees are covered in dust from the plaster.
Is that
So-
one? Is that a joist, a
So
roof joist
that-
right there between those two?
So I didn't find a joist. It looks like it's further over. So I could cut a little further over.
Yeah, you got that ways to go to get that close.
Yeah.
2 or 3 inches maybe.
Yeah.
That's a good height, man. Look at that.
There it is. So this hive, we've known about this hive for about 6 months. Mark has known about it for a little bit longer than that. We came out in the fall to take a look at this hive and determined it was a better plan to come in the spring. That would give the bees a chance to use up more of their resources so there's less honey and less weight when we do the removal. There was also a good chance that they might die off if we had a hard winter. And if that were the case, you could have just sealed up the entrances and then let it be. Normally you would want to, even if it dies out, you would still want to expose the colony and remove all the wax. You know, there's wax in there, there's honey in there, there's leftover pollen and other things that will attract other infestations like roaches and ants and even mice. A lot of times the bees come in only after mice or other rodents have made an entrance. They'll come into a cavity, remove or rearrange some of the insulating material, and then creating a cavity that the bees can take advantage of. Bees need an open cavity. They're not going to move in and create one. So we normally find things like rat droppings or other signs of other infestations when we open up a colony. I'm going to take this outside.
I thought it was plastic. And the other room's plastic. Oh, this has been replaced. I think I told you this is drywall.
And that's plaster.
That bedroom had plaster.
Yeah. I'm glad.
He's the bee guy. I'm the BFH. Big hammer.
Oh.
So this man, he's been breathing and living bees longer than I've been breathing air.
Yeah. What do you think? You need to cut the hive over there? Or hive do need to?
What?
Cut the hive out over there?
We can certainly consider that if you want to. Yeah, I mean, if there's the wax and all that over there, it'd be a good idea to get rid of it.
Right.
Yeah. Pressure. So you got a good pressure?
Fine. Yeah, I think that's all of it right there.
So now we need a bucket of warm water. We're going to start removing the comb. We've got a hive tool for that.
Yeah, I got a couple of them here.
These are it's a hive tool. There's a few variations. It's sharp on both ends. There's a pry end and a scraping end. That'll allow us to get a clean cut against the surface and get as much of the comb off as possible. We'll take it off comb by comb. We'll look for the queen on each comb. Then we'll remove the bees from each comb with the vacuum. Place the comb in a bucket or in a bin that we can use to later tie that comb into some frames in a hive box. The queen usually runs and hides in a dark recess, and she's protected by a bunch of other worker bees. So we usually don't spot her as we remove the comb. If we do see her, it's usually at the end. Sometimes she gets swept up in the removal and we don't see her at all. We normally see her back in the hive, and if we don't, so long as she has laid some recent eggs in some of those open cells in the comb, they can raise a new queen, and they will. That's always fun, watching the bees rain down as soon as you start opening the comb.
Oh, yeah.
They came pouring out of there, didn't they?
Yeah, like, holy crap.
So we'll start on this side because that's where the smaller comb is. And then we'll take out the smaller comb piece by piece, and that'll allow us to take them out in full sections, giving us the best opportunity to reuse as much of the resources the bees have managed to gather in their new home. When you get a set of wild bees like this, they tend to be more hardy and live longer and resist some of the things that are threatening them, like the varroa mite and the hive beetle and the American foul brood and the European foul brood.
That's how deep that is.
That's a deep cavity. That's like 12 inches.
That's a deep, yeah. A lot of bees. You didn't think it was going to be easy, did you?
Gonna be easy.
Ain't going to be easy.
You gotta be easy. If you don't want to get stuck, you gotta be easy. It's gonna be another one of my AKAs.
When that raccoon
Lucky
came
be
in
easy.
here, I think it got that insulation got moved out of the way because he made a nest in there, and then the bees, there was a cavity, so when you close that up, you want to put insulation in there.
Tack it up.
And pack it up.
Yeah, that's probably did because all the insulation fell and it had raccoons everywhere.
Yeah, see, that's what happens. Mice get in the floor joist, and then they take off in the summer, and then the bees move in the spring.
The comb on the left here is newer. It's a lighter color. The further back you go, the older the comb. The darker the comb, the more brood has been hatched out of that comb. Every time the baby bee is born, and they're born fully grown, one of the only animals that are born fully grown, they shed a little bit of their skin and whatever else. Just like we have an embryonic sac, they have something similar, and as they leave the comb, they leave a little behind. And so that's what causes the comb to get darker. When you have nothing but honey in a comb, it's going to be really light. They don't reuse brood for honey storage very often. They use the dark brood comb for brood and for storing pollen and maybe nectar, but they primarily use the lighter stuff for nothing but honey. So this right here is nothing but honey. It's got a very light capping of wax, and you can see it's completely packed on both sides and capped off on both sides. So this is ready to eat. I wouldn't, because it just landed on the floor with all the mold and dust of the drywall, but a piece like this, you could eat the wax, you could eat the honey, you could even eat the bees. Well, I guess we'll use this bin for all the slop, and then maybe we can use the buckets for the long comb.
Get ready.
It's all, oh, that's just larva. So here we see some capped honey and some nectar that's still exposed.
Larva.
Larva. Let me see that camera.
You trying to zoom it to here?
I want to get, there you go.
You got that cord going.
We're taking out the first of the brood comb. I don't see any brood yet, but I see some cells filled with pollen and some other things. Sucking up the bees before we put the comb in the bucket helps keep the bees from getting damaged or lost or killed or smashed. Or drowning. We got a lot of them drowning in this big, messy bucket of honey. What? This one's about to break off, dude. Grab that end. Or is it? No, hold on.
Break it.
We don't need to. This is a bee comb. Right here, are those the drones you're looking at?
Yep.
Right here, we've got a big collection of drone larvae. Drones are male bees. They don't serve a lot of purpose in a hive, though for beekeepers they're a very valuable tool. We use this to scrape the tops of the cap open and then pull out the drone larva. We can then look at the larvae themselves, inspecting for varroa mite.
Hey, where are we gonna put them after we pull them out?
In there, in the wet.
Put them in the
We
dry.
put them in the dry.
You want to get a third bucket?
So we're doing it now.
Oh, they're not ready yet. These aren't really ready.
So these are too young to be able to inspect. Normally you'd be able to pull out,
We'll
you see
find
the
some-
larva that's on the edge. Normally there'd be an entire undeveloped,
These aren't. Let here. Let me cut
normally there'd be an entire undeveloped larva dangling off the other side. And you'd be able to inspect each individual bee to see if there was, how much of the varroa mite is present in the hive. And then you can, based on the percentage, you can determine a percentage of the overall hive, what the infected percentage might be. And you use information like this to determine when and how often you want to treat your colony with chemical pesticides. Again, you want to do that as minimally as possible.
Good thing I brought this ladder.
I'll be standing on my shoulders.
I need that. Oh. He's gonna bring that piece down in a second, and I need to be on the ball with. Getting ready to vacuum up those bees.
Ready? Coming out.
All this brood is drone brood right here. These are all male bees. That's another indication that it could be swarm season for this colony. Male bees' primary purpose in life is to provide raw materials for the queen to be able to lay eggs. The queen only job is to lay eggs. And how many? Like 300,000 eggs a day?
2,000. There's a small hive.
2,000 eggs a day?
Hold this up here.
So the queen all day is just laying eggs, and she needs the sperm from the male bees to be able to, otherwise, if she doesn't have the sperm from the male bee, all she lays is drone bees, male bees. It's a,
And queen cups. Just pop on that.
hey. When you see a lot of queen cups and you see a lot of male cap drone brood, it's a high likelihood that they'll be making a lot of maiden voyages this year. And the maiden voyage is when a virgin queen is born. She comes out of the hive, she flies high up into the atmosphere. All the male bees chase after her.
That's what they do. The females chase after you.
They do their dance. Afterwards, the males fall to the ground and die. The female goes back to a hive or to a new location where she can establish her own hive. And she'll take a percentage of the bees from this colony with her on her journey. Remember, students, always wear your safety glasses anytime you're doing any kind of demolition, anytime you're working overhead. All it takes is one little piece of debris to fall into your eye when you're looking up to put you out for the rest of the day and send you to the hospital. And you wouldn't be finishing the job and you wouldn't be getting paid. So make sure you always use the right safety protection. I'm gonna start calling my students my pupae.
Get those off that screen. What?
I'm gonna start calling my students my pupae instead of my pupils.
Your pupae?
My pupae.
Light.
Camera action.
Light.
Good stuff?
Yep.
Get it out. Where?
Here, get all these bees.
There's some female brood, it looks like. Female brood. The male brood, they're where? Got it.
Is it out?
Yeah. So that's 2 thus far, shooter. You've gotten 2 stings so far today.
Would I get paid by this thing?
You know it. Move your leg. Hand me that smoker. We don't need that up here still. That thing's just a liability.